Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. A man that he and I could have our own podcast. Well, I might be the bad end of his podcast, but Chad Q. Brown, who was a guest on our show last year, profilebehavior.com is the business, but Chad is uniquely qualified to talk about what makes people tick and what makes organizations, teams work. It's a big part of his business. And even though you were on our show last year, I want you to go back, Chad. Obviously, you played at Purdue, coached at Purdue, worked with Purdue, but talk a little bit. Give us your 25-floor elevator speech of what your business is and also a little bit about your background.
Yeah, no, Profile is a behavioral agency, but it's really a software and consulting firm. We lead with these assessments that so many corporations use that are behavioral assessments. Someone introverted, extroverted? Are they fast-paced, slow-paced? Do they care about money or family or learning? And I know that's really broad, but I just believed in them so much because I never saw them as a 10-year college football coach. Even at my time at Purdue, like the athletic world wasn't using those tools, and the corporate world has been using them a long time. And we just built a system that we could send a kid a link on a phone and they can do it fast, and really opens up Pandora's box to help coaches see what they can't always see. We still do a lot of corporations and corporate work too, but we do people, and it's obviously I'm a proud Purdue alum and love helping Purdue athletics, which is growing over there. And but it's always hard. I did a program you guys have heard of the agent Jimmy Sexton and CAA group, and he pulled me aside before the program 2 weeks ago, and he's like, "How do I explain what you do again?" He goes, "I love it." He goes, "I love it, but I need to explain it." And so everybody struggles a little bit, but I'm a behavioral specialist and special advisor to a lot of college athletic teams and pro teams.
Well, and time is of the essence in coaching and in decision making. I mean, without question, one of the things you can do is maybe, at least if for coaches or people that subscribe to what you do, is eliminate guesswork or give you a better chance at understanding who you're dealing with, because it all comes down to people. I mean, I look at tomorrow's game, Purdue-Fresno State, Ryan Walters, brand new coach, brand new staff, brand new stadium, 25, 30 new players. If you look at that, that's kind of what you'd like to do, is to say, hey, this is how we these are some of the traits that might make your team end up being better by using some of those. But that's a heck of a daunting task for Ryan and company to be able to put all this together in that event starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the coach in me is going to speak to that first. The behavioral specialist. I'll never forget. I mean, the first game of the year, fans just get ready for chaos. Yeah. And what do I mean by chaos? People are going to cramp. People are going to miss their assignments. People are going to get frustrated with each other because of the heat, and they're just you can never truly prepare for 4 quarters of full game speed. I don't care if you're at Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Florida State, wherever, it's just chaos. So it makes it fun, but I think it's really hard as a coach that first game. So I just love Ryan. I've spent a little time with him. Noah Joseph, his general manager, and learn a lot about that staff. It's young. There's so much energy. I love what Mike Bobinski did there, because it's just cool. They're just a really cool staff, and I think it brings a lot of bravado, I think, to Purdue. Yeah. I think everybody needs to get on that train. It's pretty cool.
It's good redundancy, Chad, because in the last segment, Mike Bobinski said the exact same thing. His last message to Ryan this week was, proud of all the things you've done. Be ready for chaos. One thing I can tell you is that be as ready as you can. And I suppose in the behavior world, some people are better than that than other. And in your world, is that clear when you profile folks, folks that are better than dealing with turmoil, chaos? Is there a certain personality that lends itself better to that than others?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people know us as this company that does DISC, but we have about 5 assessments plus some 360 stuff. And one of them that we use is called the Big Five, and it measures, it's used by a lot of cognitive psychologists. We haven't talked about that one, but it can measure somebody's neuroticism and nervousness and composure and things like that. And sure, some people really struggle at that. And what's cool about what the assessments do, it says to the coaches, hey, this person could struggle with this. Well, how do you talk about it? How do they mentally talk to themselves? How do you get the sports psychologists involved? Because they are so valued today and so good. And Purdue's got some great ones. But yeah, there's definitely some people that are less composed, but it doesn't mean they're not really talented.
Yeah.
Or self-confident. It's just these little components of people. If you can know where to drill in on as a coach, it really eliminates the guesswork. And that's why you use this stuff. And that's what I've learned as a former coach, and then kind of taking these and drilling into each player. You see this ridiculously talented, wide receiver or point guard or wrestler. But then there's these other things under the hood that if you can really help them what they struggle with, it just makes everybody better. That's what I really loved about it.
We all have things under the hood, I think. You
don't want to see my report. I got all kinds of problems. So
yeah, I don't want to admit it, but we could have my own. I could have a monologue on mine, but no, I do think it's interesting. So in your sphere of all the folks you've talked to in your network, you find coaches that aren't good at that have been successful, correct? I mean, that really struggle with that. Is it because they can identify they struggle with it, or they have better people to help them deal with adversity, change, whatever? I mean, how does that, what ends up being a key factor for those that might struggle with it from your professional opinion?
Yeah, it took me a while to learn this. I actually read it somewhere and it just in between the eyes. I think there's 3 types of biases with this stuff with coaches. One is they've been doing it a long time. So let's say you're a 15, 20, 25-year head coach. Well, you're pretty good at your job, right? But this information, it's like, well, I've never used it before. So none of us really like change. But, all these Fortune 500 companies are using it. It's just not a natural usage tool today by the sports athletic world. So some coaches are like, I don't need that. And why? Because I've never used it before, and I'm also pretty good at the job. We think, well, if we're, I'll sell a little bit here. If I'm a coach, you push your players to improve all the time. What about a little learning of something new, maybe that a lot of athletic departments and professional teams around America are using? The other part is just, we call it the adrenaline bias. Like the coaches just don't slow down, man. It's like, we got families, we got recruiting, we got scheme, we got meetings, we got our own world. Like, it's hard, and I've been there. I've been in that, those football offices with the Joe Tiller and Jim Chaney and all those guys back at Brock's back in the day till 2 a.m. Like, you just have a lot to do. But if you can slow down and focus on people a little bit more, especially with all these things today with mental health and wellness, like, you can be better. You can move the needle, and people can perform better if they are aware of things that they can struggle with. Maybe somebody struggles with anger. Maybe somebody struggles with overthinking. Maybe some people are really social, and social pulls them, from, task. But if you don't know that, how do you identify it and have real self-awareness? So, those are the 2 big ones. I think coaches fight to use these things. And the last one is like, just, 1 + 1 = 2 in many people's brains, but you can't. If you and I were to have a conversation about leadership, and I were to say to you, what's a great leader, Alan? Well, you could give me what you saw in Drew Brees or, Joe Tiller or whatever through the years. Okay. But you're also going to speak to qualities of leadership that you care about, that work for you, versus someone maybe want more of a nurturing leader. Someone else may want to be pushed in a type A iron fist leader. Someone may want more of an analytical, teach me the facts, the figures, the scheme, the technique leader. Maybe it's a little bit of all those things, but quantifying leadership, I deal with it in hiring when I help companies hire people. You'll get so many people that are like, matter of fact, I need a good leader. What do you mean?
Yeah.
And so our stuff really, it just kind of drives, it gets you guys, it's mental gymnastics to think different and think deeper on the topic that so many times is subjective. Because, there is a subjective piece to coaching. It's a little bit of an art and a science is what we do. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it is, and it's an interesting one at that. Matt Painter is a client and a group, his staff, and I know you don't divulge what they specifically do, but tell me about those traits and what, from a broad stroke, or what you can share about what they're trying to get done. And what, Matt is 53 years old as of last week, shares about the same birthday you do, and yet though you're a lot younger. But my point is that Matt seems to use this. He's a data guy. He's got a kind of a savant from a basketball coaching standpoint. But talk about what they try to get done and how they try to build that. I'm going to guess that it has a lot to do with building culture and building that right fit and putting those right pieces together on the basketball court.
Yeah, we've learned, Matt is a data guy, and I'm going to use, this is his quote that he uses a lot with people when describing what we do and how he uses it. He's like, it doesn't give you the answer, but it absolutely gives you the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? When you see an assessment come back, whether you're a Fortune 500 company or Purdue Athletics or wherever, everybody wants them to be a silver bullet, right? And I'll give you a story where I met with an NBA team and they said, which one of these assessments is going to show me who's going to succeed?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you want me to show you who's going to get you 20 points and 10 rebounds, a game? That's not what this stuff does. Or do you want me to show you somebody that's going to play in the NBA for 13 years? That's not what this stuff does. But everybody wants it to be a silver bullet. So Matt Painter's saying, it isn't the answer, it's a data point, but it helps you ask the right questions. This is how he uses it. There's three parts of these assessments. One's like somebody's behavior, which I explained a little earlier, but another one is like values. Do they care about loyalty, family, self-respect, adventure, helping others, learning, money? Like, if someone chooses one of those topics, maybe number one out of a long list, let's say it's loyalty. What does that tell us about the kid? And what I've seen with loyalty, when somebody chooses that, well, maybe they had a tough relationship growing up. It's really a big deal to them.
Yeah.
Maybe dad was in the military and loyalty was the message from home about that's how, that's what the values of our home, our family. Maybe, it's just something the kid read in a book one time and now it becomes a part of, her or his values. But he chose it number one. And so Matt will ask the question, tell me more about that. And boom, these things accelerate the relationship, 6 to 9 months. And I that quote comes from one of our clients. I mean, he said that to me 4 years ago in a YouTube video interview we did. And I appreciated that because I do believe it does do that. And that's where the advantage comes in. We don't have a lot of time anymore, especially with the transfer portal, et cetera. So that's how Matt, I think, uses it. And he's made it his own. He's taken the scientific piece, the data, but then he's made it into his own art. But it's just a data point. If you can score the basketball and dribble and not turn the ball over and have the height and weight and speed of what it takes to play at, an NBA level and, chasing a national championship and all the Big Ten championships they've won, like that's got to be there too. We know that, right?
Yeah.
But that's what they've always used. They've always lived on that, not just his team, but all sports, all teams. You live on the production, the resume. Yes, you look at their life and their family, and is there any external things that could trip up this person or our team? You look at those things. But we're not looking at behavior and values and what people care about and how to coach them better and communicate with them better to build more of a social wellness. There's different pillars to mental wellness, but the social wellness is what I'm talking about. It's relationships, communication, making sure that, we obviously can improve and chase working better together from a coach player perspective. So that to me is how he uses it. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think it's pretty evident just on the culture that the Purdue men's basketball team, and not that there aren't challenges, they've got hurdles to overcome on the NCAA tournament. And that also plays into that behavior of how you treat, how you deal with it, how do you move forward. I think those are all things that you need to be cognizant of, and obviously you are on a daily basis if you're Matt Painter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When you look at last question for you here, and like I said, we can go on all day, but one of your colleagues or folks that you work for was a guy named Joe Tiller. One thing that's interesting about this assessment is you can do it on your phone, and that's a key thing, and do it in less than a half hour.
Sure.
Unless you're slow like me, but it is a situation where, just go back to a Joe Tiller. I know he probably never took an assessment before he passed away.
No, he did not.
But he did have a real, he's a kind of a very cerebral, very much an ability to assess people. But talk about him and what made him successful from your view. And I guess that's part of the fun tomorrow, is that Tiller Tunnel opens up, and it means something to you and all the people that were around him. But talk about what made him really successful from your perspective.
Yeah, one, if I were to describe the best leader I've ever had in my life, it'd be him. Yeah. And reminder, I was a walk-on.
Yeah.
And I played one spring for him, and I sat down with him after that spring, and he told me I'd never play.
Yeah.
He's the first leader I ever had, really tell me the truth.
Yeah.
He told people the truth. He was extremely disciplined. A lot of head coaches are very disciplined. They don't break with it doesn't mean, sometimes I can call that inflexible in profile land. And that's the executive coaching that kicks in, is, hey, there's times to be flexible, but most of the good ones that I'm around they're digging their heels in on their beliefs, their structure, and what they believe in. And he was unbelievable at that. What made him great, in my opinion, that is never talked about enough, is in addition to being disciplined and telling the truth to people, even though when they didn't want to hear it, he was an unbelievable evaluator.
Yeah.
He took the Landon Johnsons and the Joey Harrises and the Vinnie Sutherlands. These are people that, didn't have a lot of offers, but they looked at track times. They looked at shoulder width and the hips and the knee circumferences, and all these different weird things that you guys are like, what? He was the best at evaluating, and so was his staff. His staff, Jim Chaney and those guys through the years, they had a revolving door because they were so good and people wanted the staff. But he would sit in that room at night with Don Collar for years, and he knew talent. And everybody misses when you're managing a 105-man roster at times, a lot of times because you don't see what's under the hood. But that was fascinating. And the other part with Joe Tiller that people don't talk about is his strength coach, Jim Lathrop, worked miracles. When it came to, I remember seeing Matt Light, come in as a freshman, and I thought, that's a tight end. And, then he turns into a tackle, and is Tom Brady's left tackle for however many years and won multiple Super Bowls. Well, they were taking lighter, more athletic bodies and giving them to Jim Lathrop, doing it the right way and organically growing these guys. I remember Ian Allen being really skinny and light and grew up to 315 pounds and, just of strength and muscle. But those guys could bend and move, and they weren't on the ground. And they were looking at track times of, Joey Harris was a 10-200 meter guy. That's a track guy playing football. He wasn't a great running back, but it's world-class speed.
Yeah.
And we could catch him. Jock Reeves was they were looking at 10-8 and under with DBs and wideouts. Like, those are, you're flying at 10-8. 10-2 is just unheard of. So that's the stuff I don't think people talk about enough. But those are the reasons I thought he was an amazing leader. And he could be hard. Last thing I'll say, he could be hard on his coaches. I remember in the summertime, we had a policy that, there's always two coaches in the office in the summertime, because the month of July, it used to be you could take a vacation, but now, it's gone now, right? So, but two coaches were always in the office, one offense, one defense. And Morgan Burke, would come up and kind of just check on things every once in a while, being a good athletic director. And we had a staff meeting when we came back, and Joe said Morgan came up looking for everybody, and we didn't have any coaches in the office. And he's like, where are we? And the guys that were supposed to be in there, I think whether they just stepped out or they went and played basketball or worked out or whatever, he said, no. He goes, I gave you guys freedom and you've now lost the privilege. So we're all in the office from here forward. He did it 1 year. But he would do that to players as well. If I give you a privilege and you take advantage of that privilege, like I'm not scared to make a hard decision. So back to being tough and disciplined and things of that nature. He was just such a strong leader for all those reasons. And if you think back to Purdue, Purdue won a ton of close games in those however many years. A lot of bowl games and obviously the Rose Bowl. But there were a lot of close games, last second kicks. Like Minnesota hated us in that era because beat them a lot on some close calls, and you're beating Notre Dame and Michigan, and I mean it was rolling. So anyway, it's cool to see. A long answer, but that's the guy that I always keep in the back of my mind because I learned a ton from him.
Yeah, well said. And somebody that's been there, been in the arena. All right, we will make, if you're agreeable, we got to at least do this once a semester, or we'll do this in the spring too, because there's always subjects that come up, and we have barely scratched the surface of somebody that can articulate it very well, as Chad can do. We appreciate your time so much, and we'll look forward to it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow when the Boilermakers take the field against Fresno State. I know you're going to offer, you're not going to offer a guarantee, but it's going to be an interesting our interest will be peaked from noon on tomorrow, I would think.
100%.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Chad, thanks again so much. Profilebehavior.com. Check it out, but also we'll stay in touch with Chad because he's got a lot of great information that helps us do our jobs here at Gold and Black. All right, we're going to take a short break, 2 minutes worth, bring in Tom Dienhart, and we will finally break down this game for the last time, because we've been doing it, seems like, for 6 months. Purdue, Fresno State. Tom Dienhart will break it down, and we'll see you in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.